Welcome to the Disability Dialogues podcast by people with disability for people with disability. On the 25th of March 2026, the Disability Dialogue had an open dialogue event called Friendship, Relationship, and Intimacy for People with Disability. The event was hosted by Jax Brown, who is a disability and LGBTQIA+ rights activist, writer, and educator, and Madeleine Gay, who is a policy and research officer at Children and Young People with Disability Australia, CYDA. Event guest speakers included Daniel Johnston, a man supported by Life Without Barriers, and Isabella Choate, who is a multi-award-winning living experience advocate, passionate about community building and platforming the voices of young people with disability. The event begins with Jax Brown welcoming the online audience to the Disability Dialogue event.
So hi everyone, my name is Jax Brown and my pronouns are he and they. And I've been working for over 10 years in the LGBTQIA plus disability space. And I'm really, really passionate about thinking about what good relationships can look like for people with disabilities and all the different ways we can have relationships across our lives. I'm proudly disabled, and today I'm seated in my manual wheelchair, which has rainbow spokes on it to flag a bit of queer pride. And I'm also proudly transgender, and I'm wearing a button-up t-shirt with the colours of the trans pride flag, which is blue, pink, and white. And I have some shorts on and some black boots with rainbow laces. I'm also middle-aged and a white person with short hair, a beard, and glasses. So, welcome everyone to today's open dialogue. These open dialogue sessions are a place for people with disabilities and our community to talk openly and frankly about the things that matter to us. These sessions are by disabled people and for disabled people. Before we get into it, I want to start by acknowledging that this session today is conducted on the unceded lands of Aboriginal people. And the lands that I'm on today are the Wurundjeri lands of the Kulin Nation in Naarm. I want to extend my deep, deep respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to any First Nations folks who are with us today. We also want to acknowledge traditional owners of the land that each of you are on this afternoon. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and sovereignty has never been ceded. I'd like to acknowledge the meaningful and valued roles of sister girls and brother boys and other rainbow mob, and acknowledge that these identities have existed for tens of thousands of years and continue to do so today. And whilst colonisation has disrupted how these identities are understood in mainstream discourse, Rainbow Mob always have and always will be a valued part of First Nations communities across so-called Australia. I want to take a moment to pay my deep respect also to the First Peoples Disability Network of Australia, which is a really important organisation doing some great work for First Nations people who have disabilities in this country. So, as well as being a wheelchair user and a bit fabulous, I also have dyslexia. And I think it's really important to bring visible as well as hidden or invisible disabilities into the Zoom call today as a way of moving through shame and into pride and really being able to ask for our access needs to be met. So I've got some notes with me today to keep me on track, but I really hope that we can create a disability affirming space together. Too often, as disabled people, we can try and squish our true selves down to try and conform to some normative standards of being or behaving. And I really don't want us to feel that pressure today. I want us to push back against that pressure or that internalized ableism. So, this space this afternoon is a disability affirming space. So, please proudly get out your fidget toys, move around, lay down if you want to, turn your camera off, do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. Okay, so I'll hand over to Maddie now. Over to you, Maddie.
Hi everyone, I'm Maddie Gay, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a research officer with children and young people with disability. I'm a queer disabled woman of colour, and I'm passionate about creating policy and research centered on lived experience. And I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. And we've got some great speakers and co-host today. So yeah, really looking forward to talking about all types of relationships that people with disability have and yeah, the meaningful relationships that we have in our lives. I'm wearing a brown shirt. I have brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm femme presenting. Um, and just in case anyone is wondering, we do visual descriptions of ourselves. So people who are blind or have low vision who know who is speaking and what they look like. It's a part of making meetings and events accessible for everyone as much as possible. And for those who haven't been to one of our events before, welcome. This open dialogue is designed to be inclusive, accessible, collaborative, respectful, and importantly, fun. And a big shout out to our partners at Dana, Inclusion Australia, Alliance 20, and Melbourne Disability Institute. We are funded through an information linkages and capacity building grant from the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing. Now over to Jax.
Thanks, Maddie, and lovely to be here with you today. So now just a little bit of housekeeping from us to make sure everyone has an idea of how today will go. So we really want to create a safe, open, and inclusive space for everyone. So firstly, no AI tools are allowed. We know it can be useful for people with disabilities to use AI, but we really want to protect everyone's privacy. We'll be uploading a transcript of today's event on the event page, and we'll send that to you via email. Secondly, we try really hard to stick to time to make sure that we hear from all our guests and that we get to hear from you, our audience members. So this might mean that we might interrupt you sometimes to move things along, where we're not being rude, we promise. We just really want to keep us to time. We encourage you to have your camera on if you're comfortable doing so. That way we can feel like we're all in a room together. But it's really up to you. If you're more comfortable turning it off, please do that as well. Um, we'll be collecting your comments and questions in the chat throughout today's event, and may even invite you to ask a question on mic if you'd like to. Okay, so now I'll pass back over to Maddie again.
Thanks, Jax. So today's event is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Disability Dialogue website. We just want to make sure that everyone is aware when you're sharing things that other people in public will be able to see or hear it by watching the recording. So we just want you to be mindful about what you share. And also acknowledging that today's topic, friendships, relationships, and intimacy, is an important part of being human. But for some people, this topic may bring up some hard feelings because of past trauma or shame. And you can take a break at any time. We're going to put some guidelines in the chat now and on the screen, which we'll read out to help us all make sure that today's event is safe.
So this session is about friendships, relationships and intimacy for people with disabilities. So some topics may include adult content and talk about sex, which, as Maddie said, can bring up feelings for people. So we really ask you to take care of yourself, and it's okay to take a break at any time. And also, everyone's experiences and identities are different. So let's respect each other here today as well. Over to you again, Maddie.
It's also okay to disagree. The goal is understanding, not winning an argument. And language changes quickly, like LGBTIQ plus terms. So be kind if someone uses different words. but abuse, discrimination, or unkind behavior will not be accepted. Finally, if today's events brings up any difficult feelings and you would like to seek some further support, you can visit disabilitydialogue.com.au/support to find a list of resources available. That link is also on the screen and in the chat. Okay, that's all for housekeeping. Now let's get into it.
Awesome. So now you let us know about how relationships are important to everyone, and they can really help us feel close to people. And we know that everyone has the right to build relationships and to really feel safe, respectful, and feel meaningful and valued in those relationships. So today we're going to hear from people with disabilities about our experiences of relationships, including with our families, our friends, and our romantic partners. But we also want to hear from you, our audience members who are joining us today, and what you might like to share. So you might have seen a survey that we sent around before today's event, and it was totally optional, so don't worry if you didn't get around to doing it. But in that survey, we asked you some questions about healthy relationships and making friends. So we're going to bring up the results now, and we think it'd be really a great way to kick off today's conversation. So over to you, Maddie, for our first question.
So we asked you, what do you think makes a friendship or relationship healthy? If you didn't get a chance to fill in the survey, but you want to share in the chat what you think makes a healthy relationship or friendship, please do go ahead. But some of the answers from the survey were honesty and sharing, equality, mutual caring, and kindness. How we communicate in a way that both of you are happy with and meets both needs. Communication, let the other speak, listening. So active listening, don't try to fix it. Laugh, cry, and have fun together. Let them do their own thing and be there for them. I can
And
see,
our next, yeah.
sorry, I was going to say, I can see a few responses from the chat that are echoing this. Yeah, respecting and listening to everyone and accepting our differences, open communication. These are great reflections.
Yeah, awesome. And for our next question, we ask you, what kind of supports or services would it make it easier for you or others to make new friends or with dating? And some of the answers you sent in were service providers actually understanding that they play a vital role in creating opportunities for connection to occur. Community groups, group activities for people living with disability. And yeah, I think for me, peer support and connecting with other disabled people is really, really important. You also said online community for making friends and starting relationships used to be opened to the blind community, but with the development of mobile apps and gamified connection, making making it all be visual these days, the blind community feels very shut out, and I'm not sure what the solution is though. Swiping a bunch of pictures just doesn't work the same as text-based chat used to. And I think that's a really kind of key reflection. So thank you to whoever sent that in. And then someone also said, as a kind of bit of maybe a solution, an app that is modified and safe where people's identity can be safely verified, like government websites do with ID docs, like passports, and people with disabilities could reach out for friendships or dating or romantic relationships. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting suggestion. It does bring up some privacy concerns and issues though as well, if we're having to input our data in that kind of way to get access. But over to you, Maddie, for our next question.
Thanks, Jax. Okay, so the last question in the survey that we asked you was, what advice would you give someone who wants to start dating or make new friends? And some of the answers were take it slow and get to know the person before they can get to be your friend, because not all people can be your friend. Another person said start with shared interests and be a friend to have a friend. That's a great response. And it doesn't have to be hard. Don't be scared to give it a go. You have to be willing to communicate. Anytime you talk to someone, you have a chance to make a friend. Don't put yourself in an unsafe situation. Right, so thank you to everyone who's filled out our survey and everyone who has responded in the chat. It's so fantastic to get your ideas and your thoughts on the topic, and it really is a great way to kickstart the discussion.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, everyone. So now it's time to introduce our first speaker for today's event, Daniel Johnston. So Daniel has a wide circle of friends and enjoys a vibrant social life, which includes regular activities such as disco nights, weekly bowling games, and regular dinner catch-ups. He has a large friendship group through his social activities, and he has been able to form some really close connections. And Daniel's going to be having a chat today with Christina. Christina is from Life Without Barriers, who support Daniel. And Christina first met Daniel at Seaview Street when he participated in a media event. So now I'm going to hand over to Daniel and Christina to have a conversation together. So over to you both.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Jax. Yes, that's right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina. I will describe myself as having brown eyes, shoulder length, brown hair, which I wear up in a bun. I'm a down-to-earth person. I go with the flow. And today I'm wearing a white shirt with blue flowers on it, and my birthstone, which is citron, usually the earring studs that I'm wearing today. So now I'll give Daniel a chance to introduce himself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Daniel. And yeah, have a really busy life. Yeah, I do lots of activities, and yeah, and you know, go out and do my activities such as bowling, disco nights, and go to all these different places. I like traveling as well.
You
Yeah,
do,
yeah,
because we've organised a holiday.
yeah. And I'm going to Bali this year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. So Daniel, we'll start off with the first question. Can you tell everyone a bit about the social activities you're involved in?
Yes. The social activities I'm involved in is first one is I go to a social group on Tuesdays, which is a cooking class in Ashburton. And the other social things that I'm involved in are things like but bowling every Saturday, and every fortnight I go to the discos every fortnight.
Hmm.
So they're the social activities that I'm involved in.
Oh, you have a very busy social life, Daniel. Can you think back to before you went to social club for the first time? Were you nervous? What kind of things did you do to help you feel less nervous and more confident?
Um, I introduced myself to some new people when I started a social group. I introduced myself to some new people, and I got to meet these nice new people. And then when I got to meet these nice new people, some of these people, one of them mentioned about a bowling league, so I joined the bowling league. in Moorabbin on Saturdays. With of course now it's been open for last year. We've been bowling at Southland, so we've got that new Southland venue that we bowl at, and it's fantastic, and it's got games as well. So it's all fantastic.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you remember, were you nervous?
No, no, I was not nervous. I just went with the flow.
You went with the flow.
Yeah.
And what kind of things did you do to help you feel less nervous and more confident?
Oh, less nervous and more confident. I just took 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 things easy. Made all these new friends, and I got to meet all these new people, and people came up to me and said, "Hello, how you going?" And yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who feel nervous or unsure about joining in?
If you're nervous or unsure about joining in, go go up to him or her and say, "Hello, how are you? Can I join you?" And things like that.
Okay. Um, you have a girlfriend now, Daniel, which is very exciting. What kind of things did you do to help you feel confident about having a relationship?
Okay, so I met her in Bayswater at Bayswater Disco, and we were having a nice friendship at first, and we started dancing together, and we've been together like 2.5 years now, and after a year, me and Sophie, that's my girlfriend's name, we felt confident about having a relationship and going out, and we've been on a few outings for lunch, dinner. Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you talk to anyone about your relationship with Sophie?
I don't actually talk to anyone about my relationship with Sophie. I keep that private.
That's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But people do ask
But
you
people say
how
how's
Sophie is.
how's Sophie going? And say yeah, she's good. She's very good. And occasionally I I buy her a couple of things on special occasions.
You're a gentleman.
Yeah.
Right. Your life sounds very busy with your friends and your girlfriend. Can you tell everyone what a difference having these friendships and relationship has made to your life?
Yeah, yes. The difference that this has made to my life is having more friends than I've ever had before, and it's great. I have a good connection now with lots of people, especially on the phone. I contact my friends on the phone sometimes, and yeah.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for this conversation today. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure the audience really has too. Yeah, Jax, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really lovely. Thank you, Daniel and Christina. It was really lovely to hear about your life, Daniel. You have such vibrant, great energy, and we really love that. Uh, and now, if you have any questions for Daniel, please feel free to keep putting them in the chat. But we have a question from Sam. How do you know if people will be nice to you when you first meet them?
um by the look, but by the look on their face, the smile on their face, their attitude. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
That's a
indication
good
sometimes,
answer.
hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I'll just double check the chat. If there's no other questions, we might move on to a video now.
Yeah, thanks for those questions. And now we're going to go to a break. Before we go to a break, sorry, we're going to show you two videos from Life Without Barriers. And they have some great resources on their website on the topic of relationships, intimacy, and sexuality. So we'll share a link to that web page in the chat, and we'll play the video.
Meaningful relationships are key to our well-being. At Life Without Barriers, everyone has the right to make choices about intimacy, relationships, and sexual experiences. It's our job to empower the people we support to have positive, intimate relationships based on consent, respect, and safety. It all starts with a conversation. Remember, every moment has potential. When someone like Sharon says, "I'm lonely, I want a girlfriend," it's an opportunity to listen carefully and learn more about her hopes and needs and understand what they mean to her. Nurture existing relationships. John has a girlfriend, Sue, who he spends time with at his day program. She has never visited his home. Starting a conversation can be as simple as asking him if he'd like to invite Sue over for afternoon tea. Look for everyday moments to spark a conversation. For example, seeing a couple holding hands on TV is an opportunity to ask whether a person you support has ever felt close to someone or been in a romantic relationship, or if that's something they want. Work with your leaders and your team to have these important conversations. Talking with the people we support about relationships, intimacy, and sexuality empowers them to live fulfilling lives on their own terms. Take a moment to start a conversation today.
Thank you. What an interesting video. I mean, I think for me, it really highlights that everyone has the right to make choices in our lives about intimacy, about the relationships that we have, and the sexual experiences that we have too. But too often for disabled people, our desires for sex and relationships can be controlled or limited by the people that are around us, by the people that are in our lives. And often our choices can be really limited by those very people who are there to support us and should be supporting us. Um, so sex and sexuality is really important area for people with disabilities to be able to explore and have access to and be supported. One thing that people often ask me is my partner disabled? And I like to say, no, unfortunately, she's not. She's currently non-disabled, but as she gets older, there's a likelihood that as she ages, she might acquire an age-related disability. So there's still time. I might end up in a relationship with a disabled person as time goes on, but unfortunately, now she happens to be non-disabled, and I like to kind of speak back to that idea that um, you know um, it's kind of unfortunate that someone can live without disability because disability is often framed as this negative thing, and I like to kind of speak back to that assumption and get people to think about why they're kind of asking that of disabled people. But over to you, Maddie. We're about to go to a break, I think.
Maddie speaking. Yeah, that's a great point, Jax. I love that reframing of the narrative. And yeah, kind of shifting that power around. So we're now going to take a 10-minute break before we're joined by our next guest, Isabella Choate. So grab a drink or whatever you may.
And it's lovely to have a bit of a break from the screen. So now, before we go to our next speaker, we just wanted to share one more video from Life Without Barriers that we think is a really great resource for people with disabilities and those who want to support them.
The right to privacy is essential at Life Without Barriers. It's our job to respect and protect the privacy of the people we support, including when it comes to relationships, intimacy, and sexuality. Everyone has the right to decide what information they want to share about their lives and who they want to share it with. We never reveal personal information about someone we support without their clear consent, even to their family members. You wouldn't want someone telling your parents your private business, right? So if Sam's mother asks about their friend, Alex, we need Sam's permission before saying anything personal about their relationship, especially about romantic matters. We want to encourage the people we support to share their own news and stories. This empowers them to express themselves and be more independent. Every moment has potential. If Alice wants her family to know about her new boyfriend, we can support her to tell them the news herself. Help her prepare by practicing the conversation so she can feel more confident. If you're not sure about a situation, or if you have any questions, ask your manager or team for support. By respecting privacy and confidentiality, we build trust and create a place where everyone feels safe and protected. This helps the people we support live fulfilling lives on their own terms.
I think that's such an important message in that video for people with disability and for the people who support them, as well as family and friends to hear. And definitely as watching that, I'm reflecting on that it is really important that people with disability feel supported to have those kind of conversations about their relationships and to let people know about maybe their boyfriend or girlfriend on their own terms. So yeah, that's really important to keep in mind. And now I'm really happy to introduce our next speaker, Isabella Choate. Isabella is a multi-award-winning lived experienced advocate who's passionate about community building and platforming the voices of young people with disability. Isabel founded WA's first Disability Pride Festival after winning WA Young Person of the Year 2024, and impressively at 25 became CEO of the Youth Disability Advocacy Network, finalist for Young Australia of the Year WA, and made the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Isabella was a 2025 International Day of People with Disability ambassador, where they shared their love of disability community and culture. It's great to have you here joining us today, Isabella. An impressive resume, but would like to, can you say hello and give a brief description of yourself?
Hello, Isabella speaking. Thank you so much, Maddie, for a wonderful introduction. So my name's Isabella Choate. I use they, them pronouns. I am a brown person with long, dark brown hair, black brown eyes, and some silver facial jewelry. 2 septum piercings is all you can see right now. And today I'm wearing a blue and a white striped shirt. And I sit in front of a blue background with the Youth Disability Advocacy Network logo and the quote, "Nothing about us without us," which I've just moved to the side so you can see. A little bit about my disability journey, and I believe we'll be sharing a video shortly because I am a professional yapper, so I can go on, but we've concisely put it into a little video to tell you a bit more about my disability journey. But I currently live with a myriad of disabilities, as many of us do, and for me that includes energy-limiting chronic illnesses, psychosocial disabilities, including clinical depression and borderline personality disorder, and I'm also an ambulatory wheelchair user and a part-time cane user.
Thanks, Izzy. And now before I ask you your first question, we're going to show a great video that you shared with us for a bit more.
My name's Isabella Choate, my pronouns are they, them, and I am a living experience advocate. I'm also an ambassador for International Day of People with Disability. I used to be an elite athlete on the Australian team for canoe slalom. I was diagnosed with a chronic illness in year 11. I ended up being bedbound for about 8 months. It was about 6 years of isolation and really struggling before I even considered the disabled community. My big question is, can you give me an example of disabled rage and disabled joy?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good question. Yeah.
People are surprised by the things that I'm joyous about. Seeing other disabled people out and about, going out to lunch with my friends, and we've dressed up all of our mobility aids and we look fantastic. If people are going to look at me, give them something to look at.
Paralympics, wheelchair basketball is like joy because it's not just about the disability, it's what people can actually do.
Joy for me was when I first connected with the short stature people of Australia. When we go out, it's pretty joyful.
Disabled rage is an experience that is unique to people with disability. It is a human right that people with disability should be allowed in any space. It's okay to be upset when you are discriminated against.
My rage comes when somebody says Trey can't come in. I can be refused and you feel powerless. But my joy is the opposite when people realise I'm just another person.
International Day of People with Disability is a really great opportunity for the Australian community to consider how we feel that we're different and how we feel that we're the same. Like many, many Australians, I didn't have anything to do with disability, or so I thought. Disability is a culture. It's not a look, it's not just a definition, it's not just a way to access different benefits. There is a culture, there is a community, and it's beautiful, and I'm proudly disabled.
Isabella speaking. Thank you so much for sharing that video. As I said before, my ADHD brain can just tangent off. So I thought it was a bit more of a summary of who I am and my experiences in community. And I just wanted to touch on, sometimes when you film these sort of things, you say a lot and then it gets edited into these little bits. And one of the things that I think was edited out that is really important to me is the reason that I was disconnected from community is because of my own internalized ableism and my own beliefs at the time and the stigma around disability. And it was coming into community that helped unpack all of that. So thank you, Maddie.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, like watching that video, I'm learning more about you. And it's great to kind of see that background of the work that you do. It really puts it into focus. And also, yeah, it shows us how the disability community can really unite people and bring people together and increase that sense of pride. So we'll go on to the first question. What changes have you noticed in your personal relationships since becoming connected to the disability community compared to before?
Isabella speaking. That's a really great question. I think, from the video and my story is that it was 6 years after being diagnosed with chronic illness before I connected to community. And in those 6 years, I lost a lot of friends because no one really understood what my needs were, what my grief was. People are really used to saying, oh, get well soon. But what do you say when it's chronic? It's not getting better. This is my life now. And I think that through not having community, I lost a lot of hope. I sort of resigned myself to a life of being left out and just watching the world move on without me. And so, a lot of these things really speak to that internalized ableism of what do we think disability looks like. And I didn't think that disability looked like me. I had such a limited understanding of disability. And so I guess, within my disability journey, my personal relationships really suffered because they didn't understand disability, I didn't understand disability, and I didn't have any language to share my experiences in a way that people understood. I think that people really tried. It's not for lack of interest or care, but it was just that almost fear or that distance that non-disabled people or people without language and understanding could connect through. And so I think that before that saw those experiences, and then after coming into the disability space was just incredible. It gave me back the hope that I had missed. And I think the really important things around that was that people, I'll tell you about how I got into the disability space. And it was essentially living with chronic illness, all those sorts of things, trying to get myself through uni. And I'm a broke uni student. And I see this thing called a co-design run actually by CYDA. And they sort of say, you know, come get paid if you're a young person with disability. And then they define disability to include mental ill health, chronic illness, things that I identified with. I was sort of thinking to myself, you know what? I don't think I'm disabled, but I really need money. So I'm going to go along and I'm going to give my insights. But, you know, we'll see where that goes. And I think that when I entered the co-design space, and a space that had been set by disabled people, it was the first time in 6 years that I felt a sense of belonging. I'm getting actually kind of emotional now. People asked me from the beginning, what do I need to feel comfortable in this space? What do I need to show up in this space and learn and connect? And people hadn't asked me that before. In fact, when I had asked for things, you know, I recall this time I was in a workshop and I sat down because I was exhausted. And they came around to me, they're like, you know, why are you sitting down? Everyone else is standing up. And at the time, I didn't understand the language around fatigue. So I said, I'm tired. And they said, well, everyone's tired, stand up, that's not acceptable. You know, so me trying to express my access needs at that time was denied. I didn't have the language and I didn't have community. But in this co-design, I was told without even asking, it was like, you can sit down if that's comfortable. We can turn off the lights. What sort of conversations are you comfortable with? What will bring up emotions? And no one had ever been so in tune with the things that I had tried to hide about myself. So I think, you know, I really noticed the before of feeling alienated, feeling like I didn't belong, versus afterwards gaining the language, gaining the community, gaining a sense of self-worth and pride in my identity for who I am, and not seeing myself as, you know, being left out of the world, but actually going, I can show up in the world fully for who I am. And that trickles into your personal relationships. I think now I have a lot more disabled community, disabled friends. And so those conversations just happen naturally. But also with my non-disabled friends, I'm noticing things with them where they are, you know, learning about disability. A lot of people, you know, once you start using that language, they go, oh my goodness, this is language that actually applies to me. And so you often see friendship groups all going and getting diagnoses once one person does. So yeah, I think there's a lot of changes from before and after, but I'm not afraid to be who I am anymore.
Thanks, Izzy, so much for sharing that, and for like feeling that vulnerability. I think a lot of us can relate to that experience of friendships changing and relationships may suffer when you're going through that kind of transition and kind of grappling with claiming that identity. But as you said, there can be real power in claiming it, and creating and building a community and friendships with that kind of shared experience, I think, is something that groups like this are really great to kind of, talk about these things. Okay, so moving on to the next question, what do you think are some of the challenges people with disability face when it comes to starting and maintaining relationships, including romantic relationships and friendships?
Yeah, so before I get into some of the challenges, I want to sort of step out how I think that there can be a really big difference between interabled relationships, so relationships of all kinds. So that's friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships, acquaintance and colleague relationships. There can be a really big difference between a relationship between someone who is disabled and someone who's able-bodied versus someone who is disabled holding a relationship with another disabled person. And I sort of wanted to delve into some of that. You know, I think within able to disabled relationships, often you can find a lot of stigma. So that stigma that I was experiencing, which prevented me from entering community, a lot of non-disabled people who don't feel that they have anything to do with disability also hold those stigmas. That can show up in expectations of, what you do in those relationships. Are they the activities, the places, or the events you might go to? One of the things that I find often is that I'm considered very flaky, because, I can't control my energy, and sometimes I'll make a plan and I really, really, really want to be there. And then on the day, I can't make it. And I think that sometimes the response to that from people can feel that, they can feel upset, they can feel hurt that you're not showing up, and that sometimes that can be consistent that you don't show up. And then on the other side, it's kind of going, I really did want to show up, but I couldn't today. And so I think that, expectations around that, and can often lead to being left out unintentionally. And sometimes being left out is because you don't make it, or sometimes being left out is because there's this really cool new restaurant or bar people want to go to, and they make the plans without looking for access needs, because that's not something that they have to factor into their life. I find there's often a really big focus on independence, and also perception. So I was on a date recently with someone that I had a crush on for a while, actually, and things were going pretty well. Also, I thought, and they were, excuse my language, but they essentially said, "You're the baddest bitch I know," which in this context, bad means good. And then they proceeded to go on and say that they would be embarrassed if they were out with me and I was using my cane or wheelchair. But if I didn't use that, they were really proud to be with me. And I think it's their own internalized ableism that's being projected onto me. But that can be really hurtful, because that, my mobility aids are an extension of who I am, and they're how I can engage in the world when my body can be limited. So I think that it can be really jarring. It's almost like a clash of cultures or worlds. And I saw in the chat someone saying, "I'm so sorry that person said that to you." Thank you. I appreciate that. It was weird to experience. But conversely, on the other side, disabled to disabled relationships, often there's a real beauty that comes in disabled relationships. There's a shared living experiences. There's less of a focus on independence and more a focus on mutual care and interdependence, and acknowledging that interdependence is still autonomy. It's us getting to choose where we can come in and support each other. That being said, there's also challenges within disabled to disabled relationships. So at times there can be lateral violence. Sometimes people coming from different disabled experiences can sort of have a hierarchy of disability. And so it can hurt more when another disabled person is ableist towards you, because you're like, I thought we had this shared experience. Some other things that come up just naturally are, conflicting access needs. So some people might really need the quiet to regulate, and other people might really need high intensity sensory input. So, when we come together, how do we manage that so that we're being respectful of each other? And I think as well, our experiences of disability can cause conflict. So, I touched on earlier having a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. So what that means for me is I have to put a lot of effort into emotional regulation, particularly around, feelings of being abandoned. But on the other side, there's some people who have disabilities where they can be, like, independence is really important to them, to the point where it can be perceived as avoidance. And sometimes avoidance and abandonment issues don't go well together. They can be really tricky. But it's also about holding and going, well, my abandonment issues and my emotional regulation isn't your responsibility, but I can be honest about where I'm at. And if you're honest about where you're at, we can actually open up a discussion that's about that mutual care, about that interdependence, and going, that doesn't mean we can't have a relationship. What it means is we need to be able to own how our disabilities impact us and come into a space of shared mutual understanding. And I really liked at the start of today, some of the expectations around disability dialogue is that it's not about who's being right, it's about moving towards understanding. And I think at the crux of all relationships, it's about wanting to feel understood, seen, and that sense of belonging. So I guess now that I've gone through, the issue, sort of the differences between disabled to disabled relationships and disabled to able-bodied relationships, and obviously this is quite generalized, there's a lot of nuance in here. But I think that to boil it down to the challenges, maintenance of relationships can look different for different people. Communications and expectations can look different to people. I think there's also a nuance where in disabled relationships, sometimes you're put in a role of caring, or the person you're in a relationship with can be put into a role of caring, and trying to navigate that in a way that is respectful and acknowledges those different roles, I think is really important. My last relationship, long-term relationship that I was in, we were both disabled, and at times we'd both be really low capacity, really struggling. But at other times, our capacity would wax and wane. So at times I was caring, at times they were caring. And just being able to show up and talk about what those experiences are and how we're feeling. And maybe at times we need to get other people in to help us care for ourselves and for each other. And I think lastly, being able to meet people where they're at. Sometimes hanging out and having a relationship is literally just sitting on the couch next to each other, not talking, just existing together, scrolling on your phone, So kind of being able to have the discussions with your friends, with your family, with your romantic partners about what does a friendship or what does a relationship look like to me in this moment? What do I need? I think I don't know how to finish that sentence, but I tried.
Oh, that's great, Izzy. And I think, you've touched on like a few different examples and experiences of relationships and what that can look like. And I think my main takeaway from what you've said is that no matter the makeup of the relationship, whether you both have a disability or maybe one of you has a disability, I think there can be challenges and tensions in any relationship. And what's important is that there is that communication, and that either way that we should feel supported, and we all deserve to be safe in our relationships. And yeah, I'm sorry about what that person said to you on the date, because that's ableist.
It is. And I think that they didn't even acknowledge. But I also wanted to say, Manny, when you summarize what I say, I'm like, God damn it, I should have just said that.
You make it too easy, Izzy. So yeah, I guess continuing on with that, I'm wondering, why is it important for people with disability to know about our rights when it comes to relationships and intimacy?
Yeah, look, this is such an important question, because I want to start off by saying it is absolutely essential that everyone knows their rights. That is not debatable. However, one of the general sentiments I sort of see in our sector, and usually it's coming from funding bodies, and usually it's coming from people who aren't disabled, but it's this idea that self-advocacy, so teaching disabled people our rights, is sort of the be-all and end-all. But we know that it's not enough. The burden is so often placed on us as disabled people to carry the weight of these systemic issues without changing community attitudes and the systems and the structures that we exist in. Teaching self-advocacy is kind of a band-aid solution to the things that we experience. That being said, it is really, really important we know our rights, because so often we just want to fit in and feel that sense of belonging. When we're navigating relationships and intimacy, it can be so exciting to feel seen and understood and loved. And that means that sometimes we don't listen to, our gut or our intuition or other people if things don't feel quite right. You might be sad to know that I went on another date with that person, despite all my friends going, why would you do that? And I was sitting there going, yeah, why would I do that? But I had these feelings. I was like, oh, maybe I can change his opinion. But after that date, I did come round to going, no, this isn't the right space. This isn't, I'm a disability advocate. How embarrassing would it be for me to be dating someone who is so ableist? But I think that we so want to fit in that we can second guess ourselves and we can tell ourselves that we're just making it up. I think because of the world that we live in, we as disabled people are at more at risk of being taken advantage of or putting up with experiences when our rights have been violated. I think it's really important to note that you don't need to wait for your rights to be violated to self-advocate. Knowing your rights helps us stay safe and know what to look for in relationships, and it helps us to start questioning when things don't feel right. And I think that self-advocacy really leads back into disability culture and pride, because when we feel or experience low self-worth and words tangent coming back cool when we experience low self-worth, even if we know our rights, it doesn't mean that we have the capacity to make the changes that we need to make when we're in bad situations. And I think that so knowing your rights is important, but there's another piece there in how do we actually stand up for our rights? How do we do something when we feel a sense of distrust or where we don't feel that we're belonging, but we also don't necessarily have the pride to be able to stand up for ourselves? I think one of the things that really changed that for me was being a young person and being hired at CYDA to teach self-advocacy. And one of the things we talk about when we're teaching self-advocacy is how it's really scary, but the more that you do it, the more it gets easier. And after teaching this, I went about my life, and then I started popping up with all these issues where I should self-advocate. And I noticed in myself that usually I wouldn't self-advocate. I would sit there and go, oh, I don't want to be the troublemaker. I don't want to be the one that everyone's like, oh, here we go again, But then I also went, but I'm teaching self-advocacy now. I can't be a hypocrite. I'm telling young people that it's hard, but to do it anyway. So I need to do the hard thing. And so, as I started self-advocating more and more, it did become easier. But it also had this other side effect that I didn't expect. And quick shout out, CYDA has an upcoming screening of a movie screening called Stories of Self-Advocacy, and we've actually engaged with a lot of our young people who've done our courses to learn what self-advocacy means to them and how it's changed their life. And there was a quote in there that really stuck with me from this really fantastic, staunch young advocate and musician, Augie Pole. And they said, self-advocacy isn't just for you, it's for our community. It's for the next person who comes along and is in that position. Because every time you self-advocate with another person, you're changing their perspectives, you're helping them understand what is needed. And so I guess, if you do feel that I don't want to self-advocate in this position, I don't want to be the annoying person, and you're doubting yourself, you can really lean into our community and into our culture, and you can go, you know what, I might not be able to metaphorically stand up for myself, but I sure as hell can stand up for my community because I love my community and they deserve better than this. So I think, knowing our rights is important for us, and it's important for all of our community.
Yeah, definitely, Izzy. And I feel you on that. Sometimes it can be easier to advocate for others around us rather than ourselves. And it can feel a bit harder to do that. And I think, that's where checking in with the community and listening to your gut feeling, I really think is important in relationships. And I think, at the end of the day, if you think that you may be experiencing abuse or violence in a relationship, to reach out to services. We'll be sharing links to services at the end of this session, and we really encourage people to link in with them, because I think it's important not only to know your rights, but also to be getting the support that some of us may need when going through those kind of situations with relationships. And you kind of touched a little bit upon the videos that are coming out, but can you tell us a little bit more about some of the work YDAN is doing in this area?
Absolutely. Now I'll try and keep it short because I know we're almost on time. But for anyone who doesn't know, the Youth Disability Advocacy Network is the peak body for young people with disability in WA. We're proudly Australia's only youth-led disabled people's organisation. So 98% of our staff are people with disabilities and 85% of our staff are young people with disabilities. All of our programs are co-designed and facilitated by young people. We really think it's important that young people get a say in the decisions that impact their life. In terms of around self-advocacy, relationships, that sort of thing, so we have a few resources. I believe they're going to be popped in the chat. The first one is we have published an e-magazine called Disabled Enough, ? Because a lot of us feel that maybe we're not disabled enough to be a part of community. It has colouring in pages, that has like quizzes to help you with your self-advocacy. It's an e-magazine on our website. We also have free e-learning and workshops, which goes through our co-design self-advocacy flow. So, what is the process when I have that feeling? What do I do next? We talk about how to stand up for yourself, but also importantly, what to do when you've advocated and it hasn't gone where you want it to go. As I said before, we also have a movie screening of our stories on self-advocacy coming up. We have a podcast called Nothing Without Us, and it's about self-advocacy. And it was actually one of the first engagements I ever did with YDAN. So you can listen to me yap a little bit more if you'd like. We're also currently hiring for youth consultants. So if you are a young person with disability in WA, or you know a young person, no knowledge or experience necessary. We teach you everything. We meet you where we're at. YDAN was the first place to give me a chance at genuinely accessible work. So if you're interested, you can send your just a resume through to admin@ydan.com.au, and I'll chuck that in the chat. And then lastly, I wanted to touch on something I am so incredibly proud of. We have launched a campaign recently, back in February, called Disabled, Deal With It. Now, that has been co-designed and led entirely by young people with disability, and it's around reframing the narrative on disability. It tells us that as disabled people, we are skilled, not special. We're capable, not courageous. We're proud, not inspirational. We're not here for pity, and disability is not the problem. Perception is. So check that out. Every time I see it, I get goosebumps. And I think that's a wrap up of the resumes, the resources. But if you check out our website, I'll chuck it in. Oh, thank you, Caitlin. You're doing amazing work. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Izzy. It sounds like, YDAN are doing a lot. And I've seen some of the videos from the Deal With It campaign, and they're great. I love them. So yeah, everyone go check them out. Caitlin has put some links in the chat. I also wanted to mention that CYDA and YDAN are working together to deliver a program that will be coming up. That's the Neurodivergent LGBTQIA+ Youth Community Leadership Program. That's open for young people with disability who are neurodivergent, and it will be recruiting soon. So if you know any young people who might be interested in joining, we'd love to have them. I'll share a link in the chat.
Thanks so much, both of you. That was such an amazing conversation, and there's been so many useful links shared in the chat as you've been talking as well, and some really great comments and questions coming through. And just a reminder to everyone, we'll collate, we'll get together all the things that have been put in the chat, all the helpful links and stuff, and we'll put them on the website and send them out to you all today. So if you haven't been able to click on them all and save them all, that's okay. They'll come out to you after today as well. But yeah, thanks so much. That was such a great conversation, and I really loved how you touched on so many things that I'm also really passionate about, and ableism and internalized ableism. And I guess we're having an open dialogue. Our next open dialogue is going to be on ableism. But I wanted to just pause for a sec and maybe just give a little brief summary or idea or definition of what ableism is in case it's a new word for people. So ableism is this idea that people with disabilities, we're treated unfairly because of our disabilities, and we're often seen as less capable or less worthy than non-disabled people. And internalized ableism, which Izzy talked about as well, is when we internalize or take on those ideas about how other people see us in a negative or bad way, and we start to believe those unfair things or unfair ideas about ourselves. Um, so yeah, I just thought it was worth pausing and talking for a moment about that. Because I know as a young person, I grew up with my disability, and when I first encountered ableism as an idea, it was really important for me to start to think about, oh, my body and mind aren't the problem. The problem is the way that society doesn't include me and keeps on excluding me through, buildings not being wheelchair accessible, transport, continuing to be not accessible, but also people's attitudes, the way people think about disability and relate to us as well. Um, and one of the things for me as like a proud queer and transgender disabled person, that really helps me feel good about myself is connecting in with other people with disabilities and connecting in with disability community, as you talked about as well, and peer support, finding those people who who have similar lived experience to us and connecting in with them and creating change with them. I think is so important. That's why nothing about us without us is our catch cry as a movement, I think. Um, yeah, and one of the other things that I really come back to often is how to practice my disability pride. And it's often a daily practice of like finding community, finding lovers, finding friends, finding relationships of all kinds where people love me and value me, not despite my disability, but because of my disability. That my disability is a really valuable thing that I bring to the world and in relationships. So I shared a little while ago a poem that I really love. Um, by Laura Hershey, and it's called You Get Proud by Practicing. And she talks about, remember, you weren't the one who made you ashamed, but you are the one who can make you proud. Just practice. Practice until you get proud. And once you're proud, keep practicing so you won't forget. You get proud by practicing. So I just thought I'd share that because it's something I come back to often is how do I practice my pride? Um, all right, now moving on to a question. We had a question in the chat from Samuel. Sam says, I'd love to know what safety looks like in a relationship, especially being LGBTIQA plus and having an intellectual disability. Um, and as I shared at the beginning of today, I've done a lot of work in this space across a lot of time because I love being part of the LGBTIQA plus disability community as well. And I think one of the key things is we need people to treat us with respect and to really value who we are and all that we are. And there's some really great resources that have happened where people with who are LGBTQI plus and have disabilities have created resources together to fight for our rights and get the things that we need in our life. So Rainbow Rights is an awesome organization which are people with intellectual disabilities who are queer and trans in Victoria. You can reach out to them. There's Rainbow Inclusion, which we shared in the chat, their website. And again, we'll send all these out to you after today. They're a bunch of amazing resources that have been created by LGBTQIA plus people with disabilities. There's Our Voices, Our Lives, Our Way, which is a national project getting together all the different kinds of resources and support for LGBTQIA plus people with disabilities. But we'd love to hear if you have other ones that you know of, we'd love to hear them, pop them in the chat. We're always learning in this space as well, and there's always new stuff that's coming out of community. But they're just some of my thoughts. Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Manny, to that question?
Maddie speaking. I think you summarized that really well, Jax. And I think we open it up to the Q&A with everyone and keep the conversation going. And we should bring up Daniel and Christina because I know that there's another question from the audience. I'll hand to you, Jax.
Yeah, awesome. So Minda is hosting a watch party today. Hello, folks. Everyone there, we welcome here. It's great you're having a watch party together with us. And one of the people at Minda in their party said anxiety impacts how they engage when meeting new people. And Izzy and Daniel, do you have any advice or thoughts on how to manage anxiety when meeting new people? And look, maybe we'll start with you, Daniel. What do you think? Do you have any ideas or any tips for people who might be feeling anxious about meeting new people and what they can do?
Well, um, you, you know, go, go up to the person, say hello, introduce yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. They're great tips. Thank you. And Izzy, do you have something quickly that you want to add?
Isabella speaking. It's such a tough question. I also face this. I seem to have sort of a lot of confidence in community, and then in my personal life, it's sort of just like, oh my God, people are so scary. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you about any like grounding techniques or anything like that, but something I've been really working on in therapy at the moment is that at the end of the day, the people who are going to be in your life is going to feel right. They're going to hold space for you to show up as you are. And I think sometimes if you're sort of really upfront about your access needs and that sort of thing, it's almost a good thing when it deters people, because then you're not
Yeah.
wasting time with them. So I think, if you can sort of, sounds a little bit strange, but trust in the universe or something that, the people who are going to be in your life will find you, and often they'll come from community. But if something isn't feeling right, they're not the people for you. So you can get rid of them quickly. Not sure that will help the anxiety, but something I'm trying to,
Yeah,
really
only
lean
keep
into.
the good people in your
Yeah.
life that actually respect and love you for all that you are. Hey, it's been a long time since I was in the dating scene. I've been with my partner for ages, but I remember when I was on the apps, dating, I used to put my disability front and center in all the pictures visually, but then also in what I'd say about myself, because it'd really weed out those people that weren't going to value that part of who I was, and probably didn't want to go on dates with them anyway, as you talked about as well. Yeah, yeah. Look, we're rapidly running out of time, but this has been such a really great conversation today. Thank you, Daniel and Isabel, and hearing from all of you and your stories in the chat and all that you've shared as well. We're going to wrap this event up now, as I know we all have super busy lives and afternoons planned. But thanks so much for everyone joining us today and being part of this topic. Be sure to register for our next open dialogue in April. As I said, the topic is Let's Unpack Ableism. So we'll be talking about how ableism affects us and how disability pride strengthens us. So make sure you register for that event, and we'll put the link in the chat now. Um, as always, we want to hear what you thought of today, what we did really well, what we could improve on next time. So if you have a few moments, we'd really love you to complete a really quick survey that we're popping in the chat as well. And it's available in Easy Read as well. I now hand over to Maddie to say farewell.
Thank you, everyone. And if you know anyone who maybe wanted to attend today but missed out, this is a reminder that we do record the open dialogue. So this recording and a transcript will be available on the event page afterwards. Thank you again to our speakers and everyone for joining. Bye for now.
That was a Disability Dialogues open dialogue event on friendship, relationship, and intimacy for people with disability. This podcast episode was produced by the Disability Dialogue, a national project for people with disability by people with disability. For more information on the Disability Dialogue and future events, visit www.disabilitydialogue.com.au or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn by searching the Disability Dialogue.